Jason Glassbender. I'm the Richland Economic Development Director. And I just want to thank you for being here for our small business, farmers, and banking roundtable call with Ron Kind. I just want to quickly review. I've been saying it as people log in here. A little bit of video conference or call etiquette. Please make sure your microphone is silenced or your phone or computer. It eliminates the background noise and allows us to have the best meeting experience. We have a number of questions that came in from people in advance of this call, and so we'll be trying to address those. And if you have a question that you would like to ask and you are on your computer, there is a chat box function that you can type in the question, and we'll consider that as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Marty for a more formal introduction. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you, Jason. So just a quick introduction. A lot of folks in this group will have talked to me or have gotten information from me. But my name's Marty Richards. I'm actually the tourism coordinator for the City of Richland Center, but I've kind of been drafted into or jumped into the role as small business liaison for the Emergency Operations Center just for this time frame. Really just helping get information out to the small businesses and trying to bring forward issues and efforts we can undertake to try to navigate this issue, but then also to emerge stronger and better than ever. Today on the call in the group, we do have Congressman Ron Kind, U.S. Representative Ron Kind. Also from his office, Tim Hunt. He's a district representative for our area that worked for Mr. Kind's office. Also, Ethan Holmes, I believe, is also with us, who is a legislative assistant to Representative Kind. And then additionally on the call, we have Christy Smith. Christy is with the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center, and she will give us a little bit of update where they're at. And also I have a couple of questions that have been pre-sent that will also be good for Christy to address. So for those of you who just joined us, kind of watch the mics. If you can mute your phone, mute your microphone as you joined us, that's best so we don't get a lot of background noise. With that, Congressman Kind, I'm going to hand that over to you for a little bit of an update on the status of current programs and what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Jason, thank you so much for setting up this call. Tim Hunt is my eyes and ears on the ground, and Ethan Holmes works with me out in Washington. Let me just offer, if you're running into any particular problems or snafus with any of the various programs or agencies right now, by all means, let Tim know about it right away. Bring it to our attention. Happy to run interference, try to resolve it as quickly as possible. A lot's been happening. And I know there was a lot of frustration with the rollout of the Paycheck Protection Program. Congress is on the verge of appropriating more money in the next day or two for that to get any backlog addressed and get that money out the door as quickly as possible. An additional $300 billion for the PPP program alone. We're going to be increasing funding too for the Emergency Injury Direct Loan Program, as well as assistance for our healthcare providers, more money for personal protection equipment, ventilators, things of that nature, plus additional money for more comprehensive testing in all of our communities. And we've also been advocating for some backfilling of state and local budgets. Those budgets are taking a hit right now because of the self-imposed coma that we put our economy in light of the virus. And in order to maintain those basic essential services and programs, they're going to need some help. I'm not sure if that's going to remain in the final package here that's going to pass this week, but it's an issue that's going to have to be addressed at some time. Let me just thank you all too.
Including.
Yeah, go ahead. Is there a question? Well, maybe we'll get to a question here in a second, but let me just thank you all for everything that you're doing in the local community. I just the phone this morning with Shannon Clark with the Richland Rural Electric Co-op there, some of the issues that they're dealing with. And this is a time when we need to be looking out for each other, pitching in. I've been so impressed with the type of local coordination and collaboration that I'm seeing between our healthcare providers, public health departments, emergency management, frontline first responders. And that's exactly what's going to see us through this crisis right now. We've been trying to legislate at the speed of light, which means we're not going to get it all right. There are going to be mistakes made. I would personally like to see more oversight when it comes to these programs, where the money is going, who's receiving it, more accountability and data collection. We've run into walls with the administration and being able to put guardrails in on the trying to address it. But here's the big challenge that we're facing. We're trying to pump close to $3 trillion in the U.S. economy in a very proving to be very, very difficult, as you can imagine. A little unfair for us to have dumped everything on the Small Business Administration without adequate personnel or technology to address it. They've been trying to deal with that, including the guidance that they're trying to issue for many of these programs. We just need to continue to work with them and make sure that we're serving their needs during this time as well. So let me just stop right there. I'm good for another 10, 15 or so. Take questions or hear any comments that you have, but thanks again for the opportunity to get together today.
Does anybody that's currently on the call have any specific questions for Congressman Kind? You could verse that at this time. I think one of the predetermined questions that had been sent to us, and maybe I can bring this in a little sharper. The question really had to do with what is Congress or what are Congress and the Small Business Administration doing for those sole proprietors or business owners with no employees? We've found, I've had a little experience with this myself, that through the programs that are out there, it's real difficult for a sole proprietor with no employees to really reach much financial support. So really, we're talking about small town Main Street, mom and pop shops.
Marty, great question. In fact, last Friday, the Paycheck Protection Program opened up for sole proprietors. We wanted to expand eligibility, and yet the question is what data, what information. Schedule C, line 31, net profits is what they're working on in order to determine the PPP payments that will be going out, and also allowing them to qualify for the emergency. Sensitive to the fact that sole proprietors are getting hit themselves. These programs are geared for them as well. Continue to let them know maintain the eligibility as we move forward with future legislation as well as providers. And we're dealing with this issue with family farm operations too. What information they need in their local lands to qualify for the PPP program. So we're working through that guidance.
Okay, just to check, Tim, are you having the same technical difficulties we're having to hear that, or is it just me?
It's not just you.
Okay, thank you. So Congressman Kind, I'm sorry, we're having a little choppiness in getting your reply. I'm going to try one more question for you that I have, and that is regarding agriculture and farmers. We've kind of heard bits and pieces of check with the different farm agencies, things like that, the payroll protection program, things like that. Help us out with that.
The Family Farm Rescue Plan. It was a 5-point program with legislation authority that.
And I'm going to run up to
I think someone needs to mute in the background. Released my Family Farm Rescue Plan. Part of that is making sure that family farms qualify for the small business program, the relief programs that are available, making sure we're doing commodity surplus buy-ups, distributing that to food banks, create food distribution centers to deal with the hunger needs that have arisen throughout our state and country, making sure we're opening up the dairy margin protection program too, Unfortunately, the Agriculture Secretary is a little reluctant to do that right now. Deploying the CCC funds in direct grant payments to, and I asked them to especially target small to mid-sized family farms as opposed to the large agribusinesses that tended to get most of this funding in the past. And then let's loosen up some of those trade restrictions and tariff wars that are currently in place, so we can start exporting more of our agriculture product. I was happy to see the Secretary take a few of those suggestions last week and what family farmers. I don't want to wake up in a country where we're completely dependent on a few but very large agribusinesses for all of our food needs. It's not going to be good for us consumers. Certainly won't be helpful to our family farmers who are trying to keep their operations going. And it's not good for the food security system that we have in our country. All these things are in the works right now, and I know further assistance is going to be necessary.
So thank you for that. I did have one other question that I'm not 100% sure this is for you. This might be more for Christy. Christy, could I get you to join us here real quick? And maybe we better have you introduce yourself and your role.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Smith with the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center. We provide free confidential business consulting services paid for by your tax dollars at work, so thank you for that. Usually we're helping people write business plans, marketing plans, and transition plans for their businesses. But right now we're also providing assistance with understanding and applying for disaster funding. We don't control the funding ourselves, but we know how the applications work.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. And like I said, I wanted to make sure everybody knew who you were before I ask this next question, because I'm not 100% sure which one of you will be the one to answer it. And that is in regards to the economic injury, the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. The question that was posed to us by someone is that it appears that that program, when it first rolled out, it was, kind of thrown out there as a $10,000 possible advance. There was nothing really said about employee cap or a per employee dollar value at first. And there have been some issues with that program. I had somebody, one of the small business owners in the area, ask, once someone takes one of these programs, applies, gets approved, takes money, can they expect that terms of these loans are going to change after they've taken the loan?
I cannot answer that question. I don't know.
Yep.
Let me try, Marty. First of all, the terms did change because of the overwhelming demand with the EIDL program, and it was limited to per employee. Originally, it was going to be 10,000 out the door immediately. We're trying to address those concerns right now in the subsequent package, and we'll have to see where that final language lies. But as far as promissory notes that people have entered into today, don't expect those terms to change on you in the future. That is not how contract law works. So you're going to be reasonably assured that what you're signing is what the terms will be moving forward in the future. If people are worried about more onerous provisions being added at some point.
Excellent. Christy, did you have anything that you would want to add to that?
I will certainly back up what the Congressman has said. The only other thing I would say is with regards to the Paycheck Protection Loan Program, which is different than the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, we are seeing individual banks have very different language in the promissory notes on that loan, even from each other. So if you have seen a promissory note that maybe a friend or a fellow business owner has received, do not assume that those terms will be yours. But as far as the EIDL, the one that's directly from the Small Business Administration, I would agree that whatever those terms are in those promissory notes will likely not change after you've received them.
Okay. Christy, from the discussions you've been having, is there, I guess what I would say is, can you give us in this current environment how your organization can best help Richland County small businesses?
Sure, thanks for asking. I'll also chime in. My colleague Jason is on the phone as well. I think he's staying in the background, but it's the two of us serve 6 counties here in southwest Wisconsin. We're both delighted to help. A lot of what we're doing right now is working with people on what we call cash flow projections. How much money do you have right now? What revenues are you able to generate at this point or in different scenarios? What do your bills look like? How can we restructure perhaps some of your debt? And what does the next 13 weeks look like for you in terms of managing the financial resources that you have? We're also advising small businesses, and I should say I'm a business owner myself, so it's not just something we read about once in a book. So we're actively working on our own businesses and with others to kind of come up with a 2.0 version of your business. What have you been doing and how can you change and adapt to these different scenarios that we're running right now?
Excellent. And how is the best way? So if we have small businesses that hear that concept of a little help with figuring out cash flow and projecting forward and getting a little bit of a plan together, how would they best access that service with you?
Sure. The best way is to reach out to us through our website, which is wisconsinsbdc.org. There's some resources on the page itself, as well as ways to contact us directly. Jason and I both work from home. We don't have an office and a main phone number you can call. But if you go on the website, you could fill out a web contact form and reach us that way. I'll be glad to provide my phone number here in the chat window. I won't do that for you, Jason. If you want to, go ahead, put your phone number in the chat window there as well.
So, okay. I know Congressman Kind, if you're still with us, you had a little bit of a time window. You had a little time window here where we had you, and you may have to go away in the next few minutes. Is there anything that you haven't shared that you feel is real important for that small business person today?
Well, Marty, I want to thank Christy and Jason and the work that they're doing with Wisconsin small business development, help that they're providing. Again, I emphasize this is running into any particular problems or issues. By all means, feel free to contact my office or Tim Hunt on the ground. I have a toll-free number in the office too. Let me share that with you. It's 888-442-8040. And we'll do the best we can working with you and get through this crisis. So everyone hang in there, stay safe, stay healthy. Hopefully we can do this again at some point in the future. But you're right, I'm going to have to drop off now and get on another conference call. So thanks, Marty. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. We do really appreciate it. Christy, stay put because we got questions for you.
Sure.
I think does anybody, I don't want to talk over others that are on the call. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask, you can either put it in the chat and I'll see it, or feel free to unmute the mic and stop me. I've been married 32 years. I'm used to that. So feel free to jump in and tell me to shut up. But a question that we have that was submitted prior to the call, there's some specific questions. Number one, and I believe you can help explain a little bit of the technicalities of the EIDL and the PPP as well, possibly.
You're asking me? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll do my best, Joyce.
There you go. Go ahead.
Marty, this is Tim. And Ethan's on the line too, so
Yep.
Ethan's got really good knowledge of nuts and bolts here too, so feel free to jump in, Ethan.
Yes, and Ethan, sorry, I didn't mean to give you the short end of the stick there. I've had good experience working with you, so thank you for that. So the first question that I also had then that are getting to be a little more technical. So we had a situation here in the county where a business, they were considered an essential business in Wisconsin. So they were not forced to close down when the safer at home order came. However, because that individual had personal health concerns, they did close that business. Their concern was, and I haven't seen the answer to this one yet, will that automatically disqualify them from eligibility from one of the programs if they apply, and or for forgiveness, perhaps? Will that disqualify them from those programs or from a forgiveness inside of that program?
My understanding is no, that it doesn't disqualify them from applying or potentially receiving funds. However, the Paycheck Protection Program, that specific program, does require that if you receive the funds, for the money to be forgiven, you must put your employees back to work. So before accepting funds from that program, if you want the funds to be forgiven, you probably want to give us a call and talk about it first before accepting the money. Yeah.
Okay. Ethan, anything you'd add to that?
Correct. I would state, though, that putting your employees back to work just means that you have an active business. Your business is active as far as your payroll is being paid out, not as far as if you're a service industry, you're bringing in customers. So there is that slight difference there.
Thank you. That honestly was a question I had in my mind, so that's appreciated. Another question that came up was small business, they take the loan, they get in the program, they apply, they take the funding, they try to work it out, and this is just an example. 2, 3, 4 months down the road, they find that their business under the current structure and with everything that's happened isn't viable, and they close the business down. They've gotten a small business administration loan hanging out there. What happens in that situation?
Sure. If it's a PPP loan, and they may have gotten it mostly or completely forgiven in the meantime. If we're talking about a regular SBA 7A or 504 type loan, they are liable for the loan. Usually those are personally guaranteed. They can be discharged via bankruptcy as a possible option, but just because you close your business doesn't mean the loan magically goes away.
And on the economic injury disaster loan, was there a personal guarantee on that loan? I don't believe there was. Was there?
I don't believe there was.
Okay.
The loan part.
Double check though.
Loan part
a loan amount of under $25,000 did not require collateral. I personally haven't seen any loan documents from anyone who was offered a loan at greater than $25,000. Jason, you're on the call. You had a client receive a larger EIDL, right?
Yeah, they got one yesterday for like 300 and some thousand, and it was like they had to pledge as collateral all business assets, and I think it was personal too. And she was kind of hem and hawing about that, whether or not she should, actually take the money for that. But yeah, not on that, like on the EIDL grant part, the initial part. There's nothing. You don't have to pledge anything to that.
Okay. Thank you. That helps, because that's been a recurring question that has been brought to me, not just for this call. Also, another question that we had brought to us that's along that vein: is it true that since small business administration loans are issued by the Treasury, or even because of the rules inside of the loans, if a small business owner does not succeed, and then and it's not a forgivable loan, or not a forgivable portion of that loan, and that business or that individual declares bankruptcy, does that responsibility to pay that debt stay with them, or is it released in bankruptcy?
It can be discharged in bankruptcy. What the question is probably related to is more like student loans and some other types of federal loans that aren't SBA guaranteed loans. They might survive bankruptcy, but SBA 7A, 504, PPP loans, those could potentially be discharged in bankruptcy. I think it's right to ask those questions, but I think it's also right to say, hey, folks, if you think you're going to be declaring bankruptcy before you take the money, let's talk about it. Because if you declare bankruptcy or otherwise get an SBA loan discharge for defaulting on it, you are barred from ever receiving an SBA loan again, ever. That's my understanding.
That is a good point. Christy, I personally have a question for you. Through the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center. So if let's say I'm a small operator, husband and wife, and we're just sitting here struggling to get access because, quite honestly, in our particular situation, I'm a business owner. It's husband and wife. There's no payroll. We were just a startup. We were 1 year in, so our 2019 taxes aren't even done yet. What avenues would a small business have to try to access help?
Certainly. In that scenario, what opened today, it just became available today at 11 o'clock this morning, is unemployment applications for the self-employed. Now, normally, self-employed folks are not eligible for unemployment because we don't pay into the system on our own behalf, right? This is a very special circumstance. The federal government, through the CARES Act, has authorized unemployment payments for self-employed people. And you can apply on the Department of Workforce Development's website. Now, with the scenario you just gave me, though, there's a little bit of a catch. You need those 2019 taxes done.
Sure.
You can go ahead right now, like this afternoon or whenever, and start your application. And I have a document, if anyone wants to see it, I have screen captures of the entire application process for unemployment, so you see what you're getting into. When you're done with the application, though, the very next step is to either mail or fax your 2019 tax statements. And you will not, my understanding is you will not receive funding from unemployment until you submit that. So get those taxes done as soon as you can.
Okay, good deal. Questions from the group. If there is a question you have that we have not touched on, please feel free to jump in at any time, because otherwise we will start to run out of material here quite quickly. But while we have people's ears, I want to get the info.
Marty, this is Tim again. Let me just mention, Christy's done some really great videos on applying for both of those programs, some how-to videos where she walks through that. And she's posted those on, I think they're on YouTube, so excellent for people that are struggling with that process.
Okay, that's something to the group. I can share that with an email update. I believe I've got the link to those.
Okay.
So, Christy, with that new unemployment thing, does that qualify farmers also, or is that just business?
I went through the application today, and there was an option to mark that you're a farmer. I don't have a real keen insight into Department of Workforce Development and exactly how that's working, but you did have an option to say I'm a farmer in the application.
Okay, and then I think most small farmers in the area haven't taken an income for years because they have to put it all back into the farm. So how's that going to work?
Yeah, right. Not just farmers, by the way. A lot of small business owners are the same place. So here's what I think I know, and please put that asterisk. I think I know from looking at the website, reading some documents. Everyone who applies, even those with low or no or negative incomes, may be eligible for a weekly minimum payment of $163, plus an additional $600 weekly pandemic unemployment payment. So I think if I'm reading the information correctly, even if you have no or low income for 2019, you may qualify for up to $763 a week payments.
That'd be real helpful, because I know right now we're having to sell our corn at a less amount than what it cost last year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so there's farmers seriously thinking about not planting anything simply because of that. You know, if that market doesn't change by the time fall comes, you know, that's more at a loss.
And I will say that I'm not personally very familiar with with what we call commodity farming. There are special programs just for farmers, and I'll put in the chat a link to the website with more information about that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Tim, did you have any addition, and not to put you on the spot, but a lot of times farm and ag programs are more a federal program. Do you, or Ethan, not discriminating, do either one of you have any specific suggestions for our ag partners out there to investigate?
Yeah, and there's a, USDA released I think it was 19 over the weekend, that's more directed to more direct payments to farmers. So there's, I think some relief on the way in that direction. Ethan might have more detail on that, but there are, and if you go to your local ag agency too, they do have specific programs and, loan programs and so on for farmers that are not included in this other small business, realm. So do that as well. Ethan, do you have any more on?
Yeah, there are. So they can take advantage of the SBA loans. We're still working on some clarification for that. And Ben, who in our office, who I'm sure Tim would be happy to forward his contact info on to, would be able to answer broader questions on what USDA just rolled out and how that could help farmers.
So like we have a local farm service agency office. Are they also going to be of help with these situations?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Even if I've not.
That'd be the best source.
Okay, so because that's kind of what I was catching in the materials was reach out to the farm service agency, and in Richland County we do have one dedicated here, and I can share that info. Yes. Do you know if you've got a crop farmer, just as the example was, where they're growing grain and they can see the issue coming, they've not been in a program previously, are they going to be able to get some help if they go see their farm service agency now?
Depending on when they went last, if they have not been in the last week, then yes, things have opened up where there are new things that they can apply for and get.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Other questions?
Are you guys going to put links to like this, everything that's been talked about today online so that we can refer other people to it?
Yeah, so a couple of things we'll do. We are recording this so that we have this, accessible, but we will post it and we'll share where that's going, but it's the Richland County website. We'll make sure we get that. Also in the emails, I hope you're subscribed to the emails I send out.
Not yet, but I can change.
I think you'll want to do that. Despite the risk of just getting emails from me, there is, I've been told, fairly valuable information that's been coming through those, because what I've done is I've tried to send things as things change, as programs change or come free. And in one of them, I did have previously information about the Farm Service Agency, and I will recap this meeting and send out some of the resources we've been talking about.
Yeah, especially since Congressman Kynes' stuff didn't come through, you know. You maybe got one word out of 10.
Yep. We'll have to go back and make sure. Tim, while that was happening, Congressman Kynes, his video was struggling. Was there anything through that discussion that you heard that might have been missed that was important? Tim, you still with me?
Sorry, took me a second to unmute. Everything's coming on delay occasionally here, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that, you know, the PPP is getting topped off, and I don't know if Ethan has more detail on, it sounds like they're reaching agreement on more funding for hospitals and some other areas that were kind of left behind in these other packages. You know, the PPP in particular has been probably the least controversial, and that's probably going to continue to be funded. My understanding is some of this new funding is going to be directed more, you know, Marty, you had talked about in previous meetings that, you know, out here in the rural areas, the small banks and so forth were feeling like they were, you know, not getting to the top of the priority list with some of these programs. And I think we're seeing some of that. And I think the idea behind some of this funding was it's going to be directed to, you know, banks where they don't have existing accounts with people, minorities, and areas that have been kind of felt like they were not as high of a priority previously. So, Ethan, do you have more? Ethan, you have any more detail on that?
If you survived the dog bite, Ethan, do you have more detail?
I may getting a.
Is this my turn?
Are you there?
It is. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Sorry about that. It should pass on Thursday out of the House. It should pass. Are we talking about the larger SBA package? Should pass today out of the Senate, and then Thursday out of the House. It should add another about $300 billion to the PPP program, an additional $50 billion to the EIDL program, and some chunks of money for hospitals to make sure that they don't go under. There will be 60.
No,
yeah.
There was a proposal. They're trying to get into that bill, some pay for frontline, some hazard pay for frontline medical people. Did you know if that got in there in the end?
I have not looked at the hospital section closely. I can look. In my summary I have before me, it does not appear. It did.
Okay.
But there will be a pot of $60 billion set aside for smaller financial institutions, which is something that Ron had called for, and I think will be beneficial for credit unions and banks in the areas like ours, to make sure that they are able to, have time to process these loans, because they couldn't at the speed that the larger institutions were. So that was some welcome relief.
Good deal. Thank you, guys. Any other questions from the group that's assembled?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, I have a question. So I'm a restaurant owner and I've already received my PPP funds. I got them last week, and we are doing carry out and curbside pickup, but we're down less than half employees that we had before. I'm wondering, my question is what is my time period that I have to bring these people back to get that PPP forgiven? Or can I bonus the people that I have there now, knowing that I can't, to bring servers and bussers and bartenders back when I can't actually open is a difficult choice to do if it's not going to be a forgiven loan.
Who wants to handle that question? Good question, Jenny. Thank you.
Yep.
I can answer that. I want to defer to Jason. My colleague Jason here on the line is our restaurant expert, so he's someone you should know anyways if you're in the restaurant industry. Jason, you want to answer that one?
Well, from what I understood, I mean, I might be pretty good at restaurants, but I'm not really good at this PPP, right? So at least understanding that
Okay.
part. Well, just because, from what I understood, they base that 8 weeks on what you paid out before, right? So now I don't know if they count it as the number of people, you're paying that X amount of dollars to. That way, then the bonuses wouldn't count. What do you think, Christy?
Yeah, I think the question, honestly, is about the forgiveness part.
Yeah, exactly.
The way I read it, so I'm a small business owner as well. I have kind of a cross between retail and restaurant. And the loan that I received under the PPP program, it does say that I have to have the same number of headcount as well as payroll in order to be forgiven. And that if I bring back fewer people, then my forgiveness may not be the same, if that makes sense. So the way I read it, I don't think you can bonus people and have all of that forgiven without bringing the others back.
Yeah, I agree with Christy. That's the same thing I get from that.
Is there a time period? This is Jenny again. Is there a time period of bringing them back? So like restaurants and bars, we can't legally open. Can I bring them back a month from now when we're able to open and it still counts towards forgiveness, or do I have to bring them back? I mean, like I said, I already received my funds last week. Am I too late?
Yeah.
What's my time period of getting back up to that full-time number?
From what I understand, it's
So
from the day you get your loan.
So
yes. So,
am I already
but
behind the 8 ball on that then? Because I obviously don't have them back.
slightly is the short answer. So what we think that, so let's say, just for easy math's sake, okay, that your payroll before the disaster was $10,000 a week, okay? And now, right now, you've gotten Paycheck Protection money to cover $10,000 worth of payroll a week. And the clock started ticking last week, and you only used $5,000 last week for payroll. That other $5,000 from last week cannot be forgiven under the terms of that. But now if you bring people back, but you still have that money, right? Because you didn't use it. You could possibly just give them that $5,000 back on paying off the loan. So it's not like you're in fraudulent situation. It's just any money not used during that period for the purposes for which it was intended can't be forgiven.
Understood. So, okay. So let's say that I'm normally at 20 employees. I'm down to 10 right now. Would I get it forgiven for the 10 employees that are on staff?
I believe so, is a short answer. I
Okay.
believe so. You want to check with your bank?
I have.
That you
They
signed
don't
a
know.
promissory? Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
talked to so many people. No one really has a straight answer for me. So
So,
bank-
so what if she would pay her employees even though they're not working? Even if she'd pay them at half rate or something?
Well, then
Does that keep her
them.
funds?
I think
as far as unemployment.
it totally hurts them for unemployment. And that's definitely an issue that, concerns them. They're going to make a lot more on unemployment than they're making.
Yeah, especially
For us.
since they're getting that $600 bonus. Yeah, you can't
Correct.
compete with them.
No.
Yeah,
And
not at all.
and especially servers. I mean, they're working off of tips. They can't make tips because we're closed,
That's
Right.
what makes the whole loan program difficult for restaurant owners is the fact that you're hurting your employees by bringing them back, but you're hurting yourself by not bringing them back. Because
Correct.
You give a loan that is not going to be forgiven. But then you got to just kind of say, hey, is this worth a low interest 1% loan to me? To do this. That's what you got to. That's a decision you'll have to make. And like Christy said, you can always keep it and pay it back. If the verdict comes out and that you owe a certain amount back and you still have that, then just give it right back to them. So
Sure.
Yeah, or pay your 1% interest and pay off something else that you're paying a higher interest on.
Yeah. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that,
then that would come back to your cash flow worksheet. And before you take on additional debt to refinance original debt, you probably want to do on that and make sure it makes sense.
Yeah, because you got to remember it's a 2-year loan, correct, Christy?
Yep, 2 years.
Yeah, so the payments might be high, you know, because you're paying everything back in 24 months. So you got to remember that too.
did that help you out a little bit, Jenny, at least?
So like I said, we want to bring these people back, but for the amount that they're making as servers, to take their unemployment away from them when they live off of tips that they can't make at this point, they'd be coming back for minimum wage. It hurts them. But I want to make sure the people I do still have on, the cooks that I have on, and people running the drive-through and carry out, I want to make sure that they're covered and that I can still get that forgiven.
You bet.
Yep.
You bet.
Wasn't the calculation that you had to do, wasn't there some form of calculation that included the tips when you were figuring your monthly payroll?
Yes,
Okay.
tips that they claimed, they're servers. So.
Technically, you could, to get to your payroll, it might be said that you should be paying them what that average was, because that was used in your calculation.
Correct.
That's up to you, how you want to do it. But, you're exactly right. This additional $600 has made it tough on some of these, in some cases, on what's the right thing to do for your employee. The whole time I've been sitting here trying to just keep my employees whole, which I've been paying my employees whether they're here or not. But yeah, it's in some cases they might have been better off right on unemployment, but with that extra 600. So yes, it's a tough balancing act on what to do. But
So could she also maybe use some of that money and pay her ones that are putting themselves at risk a little higher salary during this? And then have that be wrote off and you've done something really good for your current employees?
I
Yeah.
actually
The
have
question
heard
is
that that's
to
possible.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's true, and that's part of the
No.
problem.
Yeah.
Because it goes to head
We've only-
count, like Christy said. Because, they take into consideration too the employers that are paying themselves, and they don't want to. I don't think they want to get it so that they pay themselves the bonus to get to that 75% level. So that's why the head count thing is important.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I think that probably helped out as much as it possibly could. The thing I notice when we talk about any of these programs, it's like going to 3 different attorneys to get an opinion because it's so new. A lot of times there aren't hard and fast rules that we know that's the answer for sure. Any other questions or specific questions you might have for Tim, Christy, Ethan, or Jason? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Go ahead.
Marty, just one thing. Before the PPP application was out, I did fill out a loan or the application for the EIDL, and I've never sent it in on 28. I never received any correspondence back that was in place or that was being accessed or anybody. What's the word I'm looking for? If there was things missing or if there was, I didn't get any correspondence back whatsoever in regards to that. How do I resurface that? At the time, I haven't done anything because at the time then apparently if you do get the PPP money, which I did, then you no longer are able to get that loan, although there's been some controversy and maybe that got touched on today and I missed it. Some clarification there as well, if you can do both, and then where is the app at this, the status of the app at this point, I guess would be my question.
Who wants to field that?
I guess I can handle most of it, is the short answer. If you've already applied and you applied March 30th or later, you're in the system somewhere. We've been hearing, Jason and I have been hearing over the last couple of days, people that applied on March 30th, March 31st, some of them are receiving that advance money magically appearing in their checking account with no communication from the SBA. Jason had one client who actually did get an EIDL loan. None of my clients have, but most, I would say 99% of the people who have applied for that EIDL program have heard nothing, and you're in the same boat that they are. I would not reapply when they reopen the applications. I would just continue to wait, and I wish I had a better answer for you than that.
Okay, and you're able to borrow a small amount of money there if you did do the PPP, or is it still to the point that you can only do one or the other? I understand there's different criteria to it, but.
Yeah, so if you receive an advance on the EIDL program, and so in some cases, some of my clients, they're receiving that EIDL advance amount after they received the PPP money. So then it gets really confusing, right? Because when you apply for the PPP, it asks you if you've already received the money, but you didn't. You're receiving it after you received. It was intended, I think, to come out in the other order, that you would get the EIDL money and then the PPP would kick in. Mm-hmm. But that economic injury disaster loan, the processing on that, they received something ridiculous like 1.4 million applications in 3 days, right? So they're a little behind the 8 ball in processing those. So the advice I would have given you if you had not yet applied for the PPP program but received EIDL money is you needed to include that on your application. But now that you've already received the Paycheck Protection Program and your EIDL is outstanding, I have no idea what happens in that case, to be honest with you.
Based on the date on mine, I sent it in on 3/28, so I was before the 30th or the 31st, if that matters.
It does, actually. I'm glad you said that. So if you applied on the 28th, then you would have uploaded some documents to them instead of filling out a web-based application. That means your loan application is still in process, but you applied before they announced that potentially up to $10,000 advance funding. If you didn't reapply, your original application is still in the queue somewhere, but you are not going to get any advance on that loan as others are receiving, unless you apply again if they open it again.
Okay. Yeah, that applying after April 1st was drastically different than prior to April 1st. I do know one local small business who applied after April 1st, and like Christy said, magically money appeared in their account without any email or any notification. So if it's after April 1st, the experience is vastly different. So, good question, Greg. That was excellent. Any other?
Really late with this stuff, and now I was early for a change.
That'll teach you.
Yeah, that'll teach me.
Awesome. Anybody else? Other questions, thoughts that you'd like to share? I always get accused of being quick to cut people off and move forward. It's the football coach in me, but I want to make sure if someone has a question or even just a thought. When Jenny was talking about the restaurant situation, that bothered me because I've seen that in many of our local restaurants. I don't know how you navigate that. It's very difficult. So heart goes out to you. Any last chance here for any other questions?
Hey, Marty, this is Tim. My information's in the chat box. Anybody needs help from our office, just email me. I have my cell phone there. I'm working from home out of Viroqua, so just give me a call on my cell and I'll do what I can. Christy and Ethan, I think Ethan dropped off, but Christy and Ethan have been my go-tos on a lot of questions. And thanks to the two Jasons for joining. And I'm learning a lot. Every time I do one of these, you hear another wrinkle of a situation that somebody has that maybe we haven't thought of. So I keep learning as we go here too. So we appreciate everybody doing what they're doing. And this is complicated stuff. Like the congressman said, we're trying to get just a ton of money on the ground in a short period of time. And so hopefully that money is starting to actually hit the ground and do some good somewhere. But so again, I will email Ben's contact information, and you can put it out to anybody, any of the farmers out there in your organization or in your contacts. And Ben is our guy in DC that's been handling a lot of the ag policy. So I'll send his information out to you as well.
Excellent. And then Christy, anything that you would want to say or share in closing?
Yeah, thanks. Jason and I have both put our contact information into the chat. Feel free to call us directly if we can help in any way. Even with non-crisis stuff, you just want to talk about starting a business, growing a business, or even selling a business. Between the two of us, we've both done all of those. So feel free to reach out to us. Our services are available every day for normal business questions as well.
Excellent.
Marty?
Go ahead.
Marty, this is Jason Glassford. I do see we have a number of call-in users, and they aren't going to have access to phone numbers. Is there any call-in user out there that would like a phone number to contact us so that we can get this information to you? Okay, looks like we've done a good job of getting the information out.
I think
Yeah,
one thing you can count on, I will send an email out with Christy's information, with Ethan's contact info, and just the different resources that we've talked about. Also, Barb earlier had put the web address out there that this recording will live on, and we'll make sure we share that widely as well. So we'll just make sure we get everybody connected. If I do not have your email, if I've not been, or you've not been in the loop on those updates, feel free to send that to my city email address, which is marty.richards@richlandcenter.com. And we'll make sure we get you in the loop on those. Okay. Hearing no other questions or concerns, Jason, I'll let you wrap it up and close.
I want to thank Tim again, Jason, Schleep, and Christy, and of course, Ron Kine, Representative Ron Kine, for being here, and all of you for participating. Just encourage you, if you can continue to share this information. We'd like to help as many people as possible and make sure the information is out there and people are aware. So thank you, everybody, for staying in and fighting the good fight. And if I can be of any assistance, I'm on the county website under Richland Economic Development, so that's probably the best way. And thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks for organizing, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.